Hi, Evalaurene. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Hello, hello.
So, I want to start off the conversation by letting the listeners know a little bit about yourself and who you are.
So my name's Evalaurene Jean Charles. Most people call me Eva, so that's the easiest way to name me. I am a graduating senior at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City. I am also the founder of Black on Black Education, which is a social media platform and podcast where we have conversations about education in the Black community and the importance of uplifting Black voices in the education realm so that we can start creating and recreating the system of education in an equitable way.
So, I'm glad you gave a good rundown of what Black on Black education is. When and how did Black on Black education get started?
So Black on Black education started pretty much out of a space of school for me. So, like, I spend a lot of time in social justice classes talking about how we go and we create and we make a better society. And so, oftentimes in those spaces, criminal justice comes up and the idea of Black on Black crime comes up. And you can't see me right now, but I'm making air quotes around Black on Black crime because we know statistically that if you are a victim of a crime, it is more likely that someone who looks like you, who knows you, and who you know is someone who will have perpetrated that crime against you. So the idea of Black on Black crime could also be made for white on white crime or Latin on Latin crime or any of these different things, but we don't see those phrases being made in reference to crimes in those communities. And so after listening to a video and hearing Black on Black crime over and over again, I kind of came up with the idea Black on Black education and what would that look like to be in a space where where students see where students see teachers who look like themselves and who are getting their information from people who look like themselves, and also just having the frame of Black on Black be something positive.
Wow, I appreciate you like breaking that down just because it's so funny you say that because I was this is like kind of off topic, but I was
Mm-hmm.
watching this like Hispanic girl today. Like I love following her. I won't say her name, but she's a fitness influencer and she was doing like a workout since we're all like at home. I was doing my at home workout and she was like, "Yeah, so these are people who work for me. This is my sister, my sister-in-law." And I just find it like I was literally thinking like it just sucks because in the Black community we don't really put each other on like that unless it's like something I feel like negative. It's never like, oh, take this class, oh, go to this school. We're always painted like with the negative side. Actually, let me take that back. We do not put each other on onto the negative stuff. It's just I feel like we're promoted more of like the bad side of the Black community. Um
Absolutely. And I feel like and I think in many communities, this is a thing, that crabs in the barrel mentality, and the idea that, like, in order for me to succeed, I have to push down everyone else. But I think that what we're trying to do with Black on Black education is, one, put each other on, and then also highlight the fact that there are so many people in our communities all over the country and all over the world that are doing the same thing, and that it's not this outlandish idea that Black folks are doing everything that they can, and that's historically. If it's community schools, if it's all these different things that people have always been, even way back into slavery, if a enslaved person knew how to read, it was a crime for them to know how to read, and then it was also a crime for them to teach someone how to read. And and even with that being the case, people would go out of their way to make sure that they could teach the little bit that they did know to someone else, or the little bit that they did know to their parent or their friend or their child. They wanted to be able to pass down that knowledge. And so we have a history of doing this, but we also have a history of seeing those sorts of ideas pushed down and cast aside in our community and not uplifted and highlighted instead.
So jumping forth in my questions, just because you brought this point up, what do you think are some things that your program does, or just stepping aside from your program, what do you think that we can do in our Black community to stop this and try and like promote and really just motivate each other to, if you have an idea or a brand, how am I helping you to get that started? If you're trying to go to a school, what can I do to help you? Like really lift each other up and not like one withhold information from each other because we're someone maybe is afraid of that person succeeding over them, and not seeing it as if you succeed we all succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And two, just really like being a backbone for each other, because I feel like in other cultures they're always like supporting each other no matter what. How can we break that cycle within the Black community through your program and just in general?
So I think I'll start with general and then move specific. In general, I think that it's doing what we're doing now. Like, I think if we look at social media and we look at media in general, or we look at Black folks who are in positions of power, many of those people are looking out for their communities and looking out for the people who look like them. I think we are starting to have this conversation so much more and on such a larger scale. I think the issue is still in the fact that it's happening in little pockets. So it's like over here they're doing it, over here they're doing it, over here they're doing it. And I think what Black on Black education is doing in programs and organizations like ours, what we're trying to do is scale that and then put it in a way where it's all coming into one place. So I think one of the people who are doing this really, really well right now is a company like Blavity. Blavity is a media company, but they are very clearly Black leaning, Black tilting. They do work in politics also, and talking about politicians that are Black and making sure that they're using all different spectrums of what's going on for Black folks, and trying to put them in one space where we can see it in all one area and then know where to find the information on a specific thing. And so I think that Black on Black education is trying to do that similarly, is that we're bringing together Black educators, Black thinkers, Black academics, all into one space where somebody can find all the things that they need in terms of Black education in one area. And so continuing to do that in all the different sectors that we have in our public life, I think that starts to bring us into the space where we're able to put each other on, because we know exactly where and how to put each other on, so that we can scale our businesses, our brands, our organizations, and our ideas in the best possible way.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your point. I went to 2190 Summit, which is a conference that is put on by the Blavity Group. It's in Atlanta every year. I believe
I
it's
was
in
there
June.
too. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
You were? Really?
Yes.
You're talking about the one last year, right? And Tina
Yes.
Knowles was
Atlanta.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so
That's so
crazy. Oh
funny.
my God. Yeah. Well, yeah, so I went there and it was just like it was the beginning of, I guess, the experience of where I'm seeing like what you exactly what you just said, where I'm seeing more Black organizations, just more spaces where Black and brown people can come together and like put each other on, share information. It was so like overwhelming to be around so many Black women, like of different
Mhm.
shades, seeing like some people with weave, some people with like the natural hair, and just seeing all the different looks and just the different things that make I feel like our community so unique. And like the topic of fashion, no offense, but it's true. But it was just like an overwhelming experience. I'm happy to see more of those brands, especially brands like yours, grow and come about.
Absolutely. And I think it's just super important to have spaces like that, and spaces where people see themselves reflected in a positive light, and then also see other folks who want them to win just as much as they want to win. So like
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing in our communities, where we'll talk about, like, somebody starts a business, all your friends want a discount. No, you don't get a discount. You should want to pay full price for my product so that I'm getting full what my product is worth. And so it's kind of create, and I think summits like 2190 are starting to create that. They're starting to create that space where people are like, yes, I should empower myself and empower the people around me to do better for themselves. And then I should want to support my friends, my family, and my community in the best way I possibly can, by, if that's paying full price for their products, or if you can't afford full price for their products, but you can put it on your Instagram, or you can show or send a link to a bunch of other people. There's so many different ways to support, but if we don't support each other, then we don't see ourselves get to the places that other communities of people have been able to get to.
So, so true. Everything you just said is so true. You've kind of like touched on it, but just to go into more details, what is the goal of the brand Black on Black Education?
I think our goal, yeah, I definitely did touch on it, but I think our goal is to create a space virtually, and then eventually a physical space, where people are able to get supplemental education, meaning anything that they're not getting in their schools and in their after school programs and those sorts of things. We want to be able to provide those things. So I think that one of the big ones, sexual education, drug education, and various other types of education, financial literacy, various other types of education that aren't provided by the traditional education system. We want to be helpful in that way. So when we have a physical space, we want us to be somewhere where students of color are able to come and make community, but also get the educational services and details that they need. And then I want to go on and be a virtual space for, like I said, for thinkers and academics and all sorts of different people to come together and have really amazing conversations about what the trajectory of education can be. And so that's kind of what our brand is. It's going to be a constantly growing, constantly changing, constantly evolving place and space, but it's for us, by us. And that, I think that's like at the core of everything that we want to do, is we want to create spaces that are for us, that are culturally responsive, that are restorative justice oriented, that are doing the things that are necessary to recreate our communities, because at this point our communities have been created by someone else's standards, and it's time that we create a space, whether that be virtual or physical, in this world, that are by us and for us.
What has been some of, like, I guess you got your brand's biggest accomplishments since
Mm.
creating Black on Black education?
So I think right now we don't have any like large scale accomplishments, because we are just at such an introductory stage. It's been less than a year since we even came up with the idea, and we're still like mostly virtual, all on online at this point, in terms of social media and our podcast. But I think that the like as soon as you said accomplishment, my the first thing that came to mind was the little girl I babysit. She When I told her about the idea, she's 12 years old. She wanted to figure out some way to be a part of it. And her way of being a part of it was recording a podcast with me. And so she was the host. I was the person on, and she just came up with the questions. She put everything together. She set up the time for us to do it. And the reason that comes to mind in terms of a huge accomplishment is because, one, she went on in her school to start a social justice organization at the same high school that I went to. And so I felt super, super proud of that, just from the idea that first, that idea stemmed from Black on Black education and what we were doing, but it also showed that advocacy and education and learning comes from so many different places. And so here's a 12-year-old girl demanding of her school that they step up to the plate and do what's necessary to make it a safe space for people of color. And in terms of the podcast episode, there was so much that I learned about myself recording that she learned about herself, and that we learned about each other through recording that episode. And I think too often we think of education so small scale. We think of it as schooling. We think of it as the math and reading and writing that we learn in the school building. And we don't think of it as our social and emotional health, our coming together, our ability to be friends, and our ability to understand our emotions and all those sorts of things. I think too often we struggle with that, and we don't think of it as an important part of our educational life. And so I think that's our biggest accomplishment, in terms of, for us, making sure that in everything that we do, we're redefining that means of education and what it means to be educated or to educate someone, that learning comes from everywhere, and that it is important to create spaces in places where we wouldn't have necessarily seen them, if that makes sense.
Wow, congrats on that accomplishment. I think that is so beautiful to see and hear. I know, like, my friend, she babysits, or she's a nanny, and
Hmm.
just hearing, like, sometimes when the little boy that she nannies, like, kinda, like, mirrors after things that she does, it reminds you
Hmm.
how much of an impression that you have on the future, and how the things that we're doing now really impacts the way that they grow up, and, like, what they will end up becoming or doing in this world.
Absolutely.
So you kind of touched on, like, the interpersonal skills that we miss, and I'm assuming when you say we, you mean like we in the Black community. why do
Hmm.
you think that we sometimes, outside of like the language arts, math, the subject courses, why do you think sometimes that it's missed within the Black community? Is it because of socioeconomic status? Is it because of fear, or maybe just, I know a popular quote in the Black community is always like work twice as hard. Is it
Hmm.
always just like that aggressive like mindset that keeps us back from like moving forward in those skills?
I
Let me
think I think it's a mixture of things. I definitely think it's a mixture of things. I think that some of these important key pieces that are missing in the Black community or in underserved communities are the same things that are missing in other communities. It's just the repercussions are different. And so if you grew up where I grew up, where I went to school from sixth grade or seventh grade to 12th grade, I was around a lot of people who were middle and upper class. I was around a lot of people who um, never had to worry about where their next meal was coming from or not getting an adequate education. But I definitely think that many of them did not get financial literacy classes and didn't have their parents teach them what that meant. But if you are a person who is of a that's from a low income community, it is more detrimental to you not to know financial literacy. So I think that wide scale, everyone in our country, uh, because it's not something that's taught in our schools, and even in health class, many health classes don't teach us enough in terms of sexual education, and most health classes don't teach us enough about drug education. But the issue is that if you go to an upper middle class high school and you have upper middle class parents and you are experimenting with drugs and doing all these different things, and it becomes a problem, they can send you to a rehab that's millions of dollars or thousands of dollars or even hundreds of dollars, and get you the help and support that you need in a way that in underserved communities that's not an option. So it becomes more detrimental to our communities. I don't think that it is specific to our communities that only we have these issues. I think all of us have them, but the problem is that when you're in an underserved community, when you're in a community of color, when you're in a low income community, you don't have as many people to pull you out of whatever you fall into. And I think it's also just a passing down of knowledge. It's this idea of getting out of the hood, and then you get out and you never look back. And so all those people who get out and never look back, they might now have all these skills that their communities needed so bad, but they're not turning back and then giving those skills back to their community members. And so unfortunately, they get out, they move up, and they are rock stars. And I'm super, super happy for all of those people. But I think that we have to take an ownership over our community and say, if I'm doing great, I can't do amazing, excellent, wonderful until other people in my community are also doing so.
Everything you're saying is just like so true. It's all facts. From your perspective, I know you may not have like the $1 million reasoning behind it, but why do you think it is that some people don't look back and some people don't give back to the community that helped raise them, even if it did at
Mm.
sometimes break them down or wasn't able to help them out in certain situations?
I think it's different for everybody, but I think for a lot of people, it's the idea, it's the hurt and the pain and the trauma that comes from experiencing life in a low income, underserved community. And so once I have the means to no longer be in that situation, the last thing that I want to do is go back into that situation. And even when you're going back into that situation, of course, you're coming from a different standpoint. And we also know that sometimes I can talk from the perspective of a lot of my friends who I've talked to who are from low income communities and still live there, but they're in college and they're getting this feeling when they're home or when they're around their families that their families feel like they're too good or that they feel like they're better than them or these different things. And so I think that a lot of people, once they are able to run out because of the trauma that they've experienced in being in that space, it is too hard to go back. And I completely understand that. So I'm not faulting anyone for it. I think we just have to start shifting our perspectives to say that although trauma I have a feeling of trauma when it comes to this specific space, I cannot what I can't do is forget that unfortunately that trauma is what gave me the drive to get to where I am now. Like, I know myself, certain things that I've been through in my life with my family, with my friends, without having gone through those hardships, I would not have pushed myself to do other things. And so now I know that I have to go back and reach a hand and lend a hand to all these people, because if I don't, then I'm leaving another girl just like me who who was feeling the same thing that I was feeling. I'm leaving her with no one to lean on. And we don't want to do that. So we want to start becoming the person that's helping the younger us, or the us that went through those experiences.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said just because a few years ago when I was really building up my brand, I kept like starting and stopping,
Mm.
and at the time I wasn't busy or anything. It's just that the fact of people like coming to me, especially like people from my own community, and saying like, "Oh, you think you're better than me because you're starting this," or "Oh, you think you're all that because you're in college." That so on the third, it kind of like unfortunately, I let it place imposter syndrome on me where it made me feel like I couldn't do something because this person, I don't even know that if that's even the proper terminology, but because this person would think like, "Oh, I think I'm better than them," or whatever the case is. And that really like made it hard for me to kind of like really be confident in what I was doing. But yeah, I definitely understand like where you're coming from with your points. Um, I know you mentioned that mainly right now your program is mainly virtual. What are some in person or non virtual programs that you want to bring about or expand upon?
So we have a lot of things that we want to do. We had a lot of things that we were planning pre-coronavirus. So that kind of put a damper on things, of like, we were really getting into a space. I had 3 or 4 workshops on my college campus planned, and
Oh,
one of them was on personal branding when it comes to getting into fellowships and scholarships and all these different things in terms of higher education. We also were going to do something on time management, and you brought up the idea that, like, for a lot of people of color, you feel as though you have to be, or in some instances you do have to be twice as good in order to get half as far. And so I wanted to, as someone who took that mentality to heart and literally was in every program, everything that you could do on campus, I had a little bit of a finger in. And so it got to the point where things were super, super duper overwhelming. And in those things being overwhelming, it kind of came down to time management. And I didn't have a choice but to figure out what worked for me. So we were going to do a workshop on that. We were planning a book drive, which I was super, super excited about, because I just officially got my job after I graduate. I'm going to be teaching at a charter school in the Bronx. And so I was doing a book drive so that I could increase the amount of books that were available to my students. And so things have kind of taken a turn in that standpoint. But we want to have scholarships. We want to have webinars, which will definitely, if everybody who follows us on Instagram and Twitter, you'll see those things coming out soon, because we're going to be doing some webinars, some dinners, virtual dinners, and doing different things that we can become more involved with our followers. So definitely please check out for that, because we have to be innovative in this time. But definitely, we, in terms of in-person things that we want to do in the future, it's really going to be about mentorship and providing real life skills that people can use right now. I think school gives us enough information that is useful for a test, but not necessarily useful for our everyday lives. And so what we want to do is create spaces where students are learning what they need in that moment. And sometimes what we need in that moment is a scholarship. And so if somebody can help you brand yourself in a way where the people who are deciding who gets that money think that you're the person, the way your resume looks, the way your cover letter looks, the way even your email signature looks, always down to those things. I've been very, very successful with getting scholarships and fellowships. So I want to give the information that I have so that other people can also get that as well.
yes, I'm so excited and I'm so sorry that this whole
Oh, no worries.
situation has unfortunately caused. I feel like we all can relate and understand that this has definitely reshaped how our year is going to go.
Hmm.
Um, Speaking on that, how have you as a brand person taken this change in pace? Like, how have you restructured your business? How have you, like, redid your 2020 plan?
I think like in this moment, it's super important for people who are like me, who I think are super high achieving, to be okay with the fact that this has really hurt them. And so in the last Monday, I was in the bed 10% less than I was on Sunday. And yesterday I was in the bed 25 to 30% less than I was the day before that. And today I spent most of my day in the bed doing work, but I wasn't laid out and upset and watching TV and eating ice cream. So I think it's super important that I name that it's okay to not be okay in a time where that is unprecedented and that is crazy and is hard. Um, and I think like just having this conversation has really helped me reinvigorate myself to say like it's time to get back to it and do things the way I need to do them and get back to everything. But in terms of reinvigorating, I haven't really done much of it yet. And I think that it was just like you asking that question, I think it was important for me to say that like I am not doing great. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be walking across the stage in May as I was supposed to, and all these plans that I had in my head about what was going to happen this final semester of college have kind of just been taken away. And not to make it a pity party, because it is absolutely not. It's giving me an opportunity to do different things. But I haven't been okay in terms of my mental health and like things like that. It's just been super hard to have so many things that I was super excited for be taken away by something that we can't control. And so now I'm kind of getting back into things. And like I said, I definitely want you guys to look out for the things that are going to be coming later this week and into next week in terms of what we're doing with Black on Black education. But with everything that's going on, like I just want people to know that it's okay not to be okay. Um, and it's okay to mess up. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to need to reset. And then, and with that being said, we are resetting. Black on Black education is resetting. We are realigning ourselves and being innovative on how we can still keep doing the work that we want to do.
Oh, I do just want to say, like, I am so like sending you like good vibes about the whole like final year. I wasn't sure where you were with
Mm-hmm.
your time in college, so I didn't get a chance to ask you, but I just want you to know, like, don't let this like I know you're fine and everything, but
Mm-hmm.
still don't let this like deter you or make you feel like, this is not what I thought my final like semester of college would be. Like, I think for me when I was finishing college, I definitely didn't think my final semester of college was going to go the way it did, although it wasn't as crazy as this. I think this is just like a great, like, not a great, but this is just a good example of how life after college is. Excuse my language, but shit will just be thrown at you and things will happen and you just have to like get up and just like keep moving and pick up the pieces.
Absolutely.
What I'm learning for my personal self is recognize the different like recognize and understand the moments that you're going through and what you're feeling and be okay with being okay, but don't like, don't stay in that moment forever. Find whatever that
Absolutely.
trick is where you're like, okay, for 24 hours I'm going to feel down and like feel like my worst and let myself feel like shit. But then once the 24 hours are up, that's it. I'm taking a shower, brushing my teeth, getting ready for the day, and like at least trying to get myself out of the funk. Find what works for you, but just know like you have every right to feel the way you've been feeling.
Absolutely. And so like I said, people will definitely see things coming out very soon because we are for sure moving in the right direction. But yeah, stuff happens, things things pandemics arise and everything doesn't happen the way we want it to happen, and that's okay. And it gives us opportunities for other things, and it gives us opportunities to be better and to do better and to do different. Because I think, especially people um, like myself who are just like go getters and always doing things and always on a call or always meeting with someone, honestly, the last week of like chilling has been helpful. It really has. It's been helpful. And I can't
Yeah.
deny that it's been helpful in helping me reset myself and get it together. But like everything that you said is so true, that it's time to like snap out of it, get moving, and and exactly, a lot of people are getting the opportunities to do things that they didn't have time to do before. And so, as much as sucks and this is crazy, those of us who are blessed enough to have internet at home, have their lights on, have food in the fridge, have all these different things that they need right now, it's definitely time to be grinding, because there's a lot of people who are really struggling with everything that's going on.
Yes, definitely agree. That's like one of the things I think when this whole thing started is I was just like, I'm grateful to have like everything you just mentioned. And for me, I'm just grateful to have a job and still have income coming in, because
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I do know friends who have gotten laid off or whatever the
Yeah,
case may
me
be.
too.
And I didn't even think I didn't even think about that part when all this happened. I just thought like, wow, I don't want to like end up sick, or knowing someone who ends up sick and they end up dying. I didn't even think about the job part or how this affects the economy. But yeah, everything you just said, like I definitely agree with. For anyone that does want to get involved with Black on Black education, how can they go about getting involved? What are the social media handles? And just what are different things people can do to get involved, even if it's not with the brand, but just changing a different way that we as Black people interact with each other.
Absolutely. So one, if you want to get involved with just if you want to get involved in general, get change the way that you think about education. Education is a lifelong journey. It is something that we need to do for the rest of our lives, forever and always, until the day that we die. Because education is so much more than what we're taught in school. Education is so much more than what our parents teach us. It's what we get from books. It's what we get from videos. It's what we get from podcasts. It's what we get from being a person who is consuming the knowledge that is around us. If you want to get involved with Black on Black education specifically, we would love to have you, love to talk to you. Anyone who does anything in terms of education, we would love to have you on our podcast, have you on a live video on Instagram, on Facebook. Like, we want to be having these conversations as much as possible. So please reach out. You can reach out to us via email at blackonblackeducation@gmail.com. It's spelled fully out. So you can reach us there. You can also DM us on Instagram at blackonblacked. So BLACK on black ED on Instagram, on Twitter. And yeah, those are the best ways to reach us. We really would love to hear from people. We love having conversations with different folks. It's really awesome. It's really great. And we're able to just get so much. Like, just having this conversation, I feel full. So every time I'm talking to people and interacting with people, it makes me feel better. And so I love doing that. But it also, like, when we hear back from people who listen to the podcast, or who listen or see the things that we post on Instagram, and they feel something, that makes us feel really awesome too. So we would love to hear from anybody who wants to have a conversation, whether you're a student or a teacher or an administrator, an educator, any of those things, because I think the voices of students need to be heard more. The voices of teachers need to be heard more. The voices of administrators, everyone who has something to do with our education system. People who work in fitness, who want to tell people the importance of keeping their body right, financial literacy, even meditation, and having our mental well-being right. We try to have conversations with people in all of those facets, that we're keeping this idea that education is more than schooling, in the midst of everything that we do.
Well, thank you so much for a great conversation. The last
Yes.
question I like to ask people, because the podcast is called Pour Into My Cup, do you feel like your cup is half empty or half full, and why?
My cup is half full. I'm trying to get it fully full, but we'll get there. But right now it's half full, because anything that's causing it to be half empty is something that I can fix.
Well, thank you again so much for being on the podcast. It was great chatting with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Can't wait until the next episode to get your cup filled. Follow us on our social media platform for daily inspiration at Pour Into My Cup on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. Or check out our blog and services at www.pourintomycup.org. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast to stay updated when new episodes are released. Leave a review and pour into someone else's cup by sharing the podcast. And I have to ask, is your cup half empty or half full? Peace, love, happiness. Rashiba, signing off.